Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Science of Mind class. Sunday morning, bright and early, the perfect time to go deeper into the principles and the philosophy of Science of Mind. My name is Tracy Brown. I am a leader, licensed practitioner, and spiritual coach here at CSLDallas. And being with you on Sunday morning is one of my most favorite things. And it's being with you and being with the writing of Ernest Holmes. So let us begin by going within. Taking that deep breath, I know and remember that the innermost God and the uppermost God are one God. That the breath that I take is a representation of life as created by the one Creator. And that this principle called life and this principle called God is never changing, always expressing, always expanding, and always evolving in me, in everyone within the sound of my voice, and in fact, in all creation. So I claim and declare that this time that is beginning now on the time-space continuum is the perfect time to dive more deeply into this faith, the philosophy, and the way of life described as science of mind, and to simply allow wisdom to express and expand within each person. So I smile with deep gratitude, and I release every thought, every idea, this entire activity into spiritual law, spiritual practice. And I invite you to affirm this with me right now by saying, and so it is. So if this happens to be your first time with us, I just will give you a little bit of a heads up. It's a class, but it's also a discussion. So I want to hear your questions. I want to hear how the information I share resonates with you, or maybe you'll even have an example of something that I share. And if you are following along because this is not your first time and you have your Science of Mind textbook with you, today we are going to begin on the bottom of page 184 and probably go into and through page 186. So this is in the chapter 13 that is titled Causes and Conditions. And when we looked at that last week, we looked at mental practice deals with only thought, and how our thoughts are things, and our thoughts are a part of the creation, what we create. And we also talked about the changeless reality and the fact that spirit is changeless reality. And today we begin by diving into the perfect universe. And the perfect universe is just about us recognizing that when we are praying or when we are diving into spiritual practice, that we are setting a new cause into motion. And we are doing that within a perfect universe. So here's what Ernest Holmes had to say about that. We must seek to realize the spiritual universe, regardless of any condition which appears, if we would embody the greatest good. If the spiritual universe were not perfect, it could not exist for a single moment. The truth is indivisible and whole. God is complete and perfect. A perfect cause must produce a perfect effect. Disregarding all evidence to the contrary, the student of truth will maintain that they live in a perfect universe and among people who are potentially perfect. They will regulate their thinking to meet this necessity and will refuse to believe in its opposite. So this section, which is three paragraphs, really it's just reinforcing that the universe, as it's been created, is perfect because it is a reflection of God. It is made from God. It is made by God. And so it is perfect in its natural state. And when we are beginning to understand cause and effect, or causes and conditions, we have to remember that the universe in itself is perfect. It is not a condition that changes. And I love the reminder that is in italics. There are two reminders I love here. One is in italics. A perfect cause must produce a perfect effect. So God as perfect cause must manifest as perfection. So that's really a key thing to remind when we talk about the perfect universe. And then the other piece that really I always try to remember is at first I may be influenced by conditions, but as time goes on, I will prove this perfection. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. And it starts right above that the student of truth will maintain that I live in a perfect universe and among people potentially perfect. Now, the conditions I'm in may not seem perfect. The opinion of the person I'm talking to may not feel perfect. The conflict being caused by political parties and campaigns may not appear to be perfect. But it is all happening in a container that is perfect, and it is all sourced from perfection. And the reason this is so important for us to remember is because, again, going back to last week, the universe, the source of life itself, is a changeless reality. And we are adjusting in our physical form by using our mental thoughts to create or change condition. So there. And be thinking about, when have you found yourself in a situation where intellectually you know there is a perfect universe and that you are part of it. However, the conditions around you don't seem to support that. Like, the conditions that you are in are saying, this is not a perfect universe. I don't know what you're thinking, but you must have lost your mind. And I love it when my brain tells me that, because it's the cue for me to say, yes, I have lost my lowercase human mind. I have replaced it with my uppercase M spiritual mind, where I know the truth. And I know that everything is moving back toward that perfection. So be thinking about any examples you have. And I'm going to jump into the beginning of the next paragraph, and then I want to hear your examples and your questions. So the next section, the next paragraph begins the next section in this chapter. And the title for this section is Turn Entirely from the Condition. Turn entirely from the condition. So Ernest Holmes writes, "Behold thou my face forever. Look unto me and be ye saved, all the ends of the earth." And he obviously there is quoting from the Bible. And then he goes on to say, that is, look up and not down. The reason a person has difficulty in throwing off some weakness of character while believing in spirit implicitly and having faith that they are going to overcome this limitation is because they have not induced the necessary images in mind. If they had, they would have overcome this trouble. Thinking of their weakness keeps the image of the weakness before them. We cannot be too insistent on this all-important point. In treating, we must turn entirely away from the condition. Disease and limitation are neither person, place, nor thing. Turn entirely from the condition or limited situation to its opposite, to the realization of health, happiness, and harmony. Spiritual treatment starts with perfect God, perfect man, perfect being, which statement consciously removes any belief which denies such manifestation. Okay, so let's talk. There's this framework that has been placed, right? There is a perfect universe, and when we're experiencing something other than that perfection, we are to turn entirely from the condition. So, when have you been in situations where you know, like up here intellectually, you know there's a perfect universe, you know God is perfect, you know life is perfectly unfolding, but it doesn't look that way? And what was the condition that created that? And maybe you can also share how you turned away from that condition, but maybe not. So I want to hear from you. So I'm going to turn to Ryan Brown and ask him how I can hear from you and how you can make sure I get your comments.
Thank you very much, Tracy, and welcome everybody. I appreciate you all joining us today. So if you're watching us on Facebook Live, you can go ahead and put your questions, your comments inside of the actual comment section. If you are here with us on Zoom, go ahead and hit the raise your hand icon located down below, or you could always put your questions and comments in the chat section, and I'll read it out loud. If you guys don't know already, we try to keep everybody as fairly anonymous as possible. So if you have something, just feel free to put it out in whatever way you feel comfortable. So I do have a hand raised. Dennis, do you want to go ahead and just unmute yourself, Dennis?
Good morning, Tracy Brown.
Oh, Dennis, can you feel my hug? The virtual hug. Hi.
Oh, yes, love you. What I wanted, as you were going through this, of course, I try to read ahead so that then as we study, it's a little clearer. But anyway, the way I turn away is anytime I'm in that situation where I know that I'm having a conflict between what I believe and what I see and what I feel, I just tell myself, it's a red flag for me. There's a false belief going on. It doesn't matter what the false belief is. But I'm just, that gets me back into alignment and doing treatments and such in the proper direction.
I love that. And you're right. The more that we do this work, we recognize the red flags. We recognize, wait a minute, I'm thinking this, but I know better, but wait a minute. And then we move into action. So I love your example. It's like, okay, what spiritual practice is going to help me remember the truth? Because I cannot deal with or shift the condition as long as I am still wrapped up in the condition and it is getting the majority of my attention. So, Dennis, that's a really great example. And for a lot of people, they haven't gotten to the point yet where you can see the pattern and go, oh, it's happening again. And if I'm feeling this way, I need to stop and take a breath. And it's really it's a skill. It really is a skill, because most of the time we get caught up in the condition. We get caught up in the condition. Other comments, Ryan?
I'm just looking here to see if we have anything on Facebook. Yeah, we do. We have another. Connie, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Good morning, Tracy. Good morning, everybody. Hi. Hi. Boy, this is, again, it's just right on target for me. Yesterday I was taking a walk in the park and I started a conversation with a couple of young women, Spanish speakers. So it was a bilingual conversation, and that made it a little tricky for me. But the woman I was talking with doesn't speak much English. But anyway, we got into talking about religion, and she is Christian. We're very, very, I'd say focused on her perspective. And she was trying to tell me that I should have her perspective, or else it would be too bad for me. It was that kind of a thing. And I'm into, right now, honoring other people's path in life. They're entitled to it. It's the personal choice to have their path in life. But I almost jumped into the argument phase of it, and I was aware of the bigger picture as we were talking. And maybe I did a little edge in, but I really backed off. And I just put my hands up and I just said, well, thank you for sharing. And now I'll say goodbye. I mean, it was the only thing for me to do was to just back away from it and say goodbye. Thank you for sharing, and I honor your perspective, and bye. Yeah, so it was interesting, but I was able to retrieve it, I think. It was tricky.
What a great example. And I love that example because it's so real. Most of us, most of the time, we're going through the day and we find ourselves in conversations or in meetings or in just our own conversation with ourselves, right, in our own inner thinking. And it is so easy to just get hooked into the human experience, into the human thought, into what the brain is saying is right or wrong, or good or bad. And for you, Connie, to be able to catch yourself is powerful, really powerful. And yes, it's also a really good example of remembering there is a perfect universe. And so in a world, on an earth with more than 7 billion human beings, there've got to be many paths to get to enlightenment, to get to living a life worth living. And so, yeah, we can't assume or require people to agree with us, and it means we give ourselves permission to not be in agreement with someone else. So, great example. Ryan.
Yeah, I just want to read some of the comments that have come through, and then I want to call into the room David for his question or comment. So I had a comment come in through our Zoom. I'm just going to read it. It says, I have been experiencing physical wellness conditions, realizing how much I complain about it to myself or others. I am in the seemingly impossible midst of shifting my go-to of complaints. Surprisingly, I am learning that the shift is not in suppressing the complaints, but in realizing I'm doing it again without judgment. And then just releasing and letting it go. Still in progress, but it may be easier than I have always thought. And then they end the quote by saying, shift happens. So I thought that was great.
That is great. And hold on, because I want to comment about that, and not just let it go, because it's so powerful. Turning away from the condition does not mean ignoring it. Turning away from the condition does not mean denying it. Turning away from the condition does not mean pretending that it doesn't exist. People make the mistake of interpreting our philosophy and our teaching as, oh, you just tell people to think positive, or you just tell people, to ignore it and it'll get better. And we don't teach that. We teach that you notice it, and then you consciously choose to remember that that is not the true essential nature of you or of life, and that that is not what it has to be, and then focus your attention on what you want instead of what you don't want. And so, yes, it can feel difficult at first, but I love that part of the comment that was, maybe it's not so difficult, maybe it's not as hard as I thought. It takes practice, and the more you do it, the more you notice you're in judgment again, and then like Dennis said a few minutes ago, and then I use spiritual practice and shift, as you just said, shift happens. Love, love, love that.
And I think we have our next t-shirt, right? Shift happens. We can put that on the front of it. All right, I'm going to call into the room David. David, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Hello. Hey, Terry. Tony, Terry, and Ryan. How you guys doing?
Great, David. And can you speak up just a little bit?
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed.
That's much better.
Awesome, awesome. So, I'm glad to be in this class. Reading that text just made me think of something, and I jotted it down just so my thoughts don't get all discombobulated like they tend to do. Roles and conditions are not perfect cause. Perfect cause allows me to have more joy, abundance, and harmony while in roles and conditions. Because, you sometimes get lost in a role and condition. I know I tend to. And then it starts to go a little bad. And you get upset. You think there's, because you're looking at the role and condition as if it's perfect.
Yes.
And it's not perfect cause. And as I move back into perfect cause, I'm more successful in whatever role or condition I may be dealing with. It could be health, it could be finance, it could be relationships. But I'm finding that holding that perfect cause closer to my present moment makes me more effective in whatever role or condition I may be dealing with. And I just wanted to share that because it just felt real.
I know it looks like I'm sitting still in the chair, but inside I'm going, oh, that's so good. Oh, that's so rich. Oh, that's so perfect. And because that really does capture what we all go through constantly. And remembering that the perfect cause is there underneath or behind what we are experiencing means, okay, what we're experiencing, it's a fact, but it does not have to define our future. And our future could be 60 seconds from now, or our future could be 6 months from now. But once we redefine and reconnect to the perfect cause, the cause that expresses the qualities of God, the qualities of perfection, as you described so beautifully, David, when we reconnect to that, then we begin to shift everything that we are doing and saying and experiencing in order to manifest or experience that perfection. And I couldn't have said it better. Please, what you wrote down, like that could be, an affirmation on the bathroom mirror, or something to read once a day. It really captured it perfectly. So what else you got?
I think we actually
Running.
have the back of the T-shirt now, right? So
Yes.
I have two questions that came across. So I want to read the first one here to you. And they ask, what is the difference between treating to recognize the ultimate perfection in the condition and treating to change the condition, which implies that it is not perfect? Do you want me to read that again?
No, I got it.
Okay.
I love that question. So, from a spiritual perspective, we are always treating to reveal the truth. Some of you have heard us use the cliche because the kind of jargon, but we use it to remind ourselves there's nothing to heal, only truth to reveal. So when we are doing treatment to reveal the capital T truth, the perfect cause. So in our human language, in using English to communicate, yes, you will hear us say that treatment is designed to change the condition, but we're not fighting the condition. We're not. We recognize the condition and we choose the purpose for our treatment of that condition, which is to move toward and to reveal the spiritual truth. And when we are doing the treatment is all about what it looks like when the spiritual truth is revealed. So, for example, if someone comes to me for treatment and they have been diagnosed with cancer, I am not treating for the cancer to resolve itself or for the cancer to be gone, really. I am treating for this person's best health to represent itself. I am treating for wholeness in this person's body to reveal itself and to manifest in physical ways. I am treating for there to be mental and physical and emotional alignment with the soul, with the best of spirit. So my treatment is always about what it looks like, feels like, and how the truth manifests. The result of the treatment is that the condition must be changed because the two cannot exist at the same time. So the condition does change, but I'm not treating for the condition. I am treating for the perfect universe to display and to manifest.
I love it. That's a great explanation. All right, so this next question, it asks, what about when you have started your healing pathway, but you find yourself stuck mentally? You know in your mind that everything is happening for a reason. What do you do when you find yourself mentally stuck?
There are like 8 responses going around in my head. So I'm taking a breath because all 8 of those comments cannot come out at the same time.
She has an octopus answer.
So that's a really great question as we are in this chapter on causes and conditions, right? So a couple of pages earlier, that section at the beginning of chapter 13 that says mental practice deals only with thought, and it reminds us that our thoughts create, right? And our thoughts are the cause for what happens. in terms of how we experience whatever is going on. It is perfectly normal when we are dealing with something that feels big to us in our humanness that we will get stuck. That we know in theory, and we actually believe and have faith that there is a God or there is a power in the universe. There is a power for good in the universe. It's available to all, and I can use it. And we know that. And we know it, and we know it, and we know it. But the condition we're facing, whether it's medical or divorce or bankruptcy or a loss of some kind, grief, it's so strong that we just have to keep reminding ourselves over and over and over again that this is good or leading to good. This is really hard for me. Part of it, I'm glad that thought came to mind, because a lot of times we are afraid to acknowledge that in my human experience, this is tough. I may not have ever experienced anything this hard before. And then I can remember. But everything that I've experienced before that felt difficult, I got through it. And then I got through it because I remember that there is one power. It is for good. It is my life right here and right now, and I am moving toward that good. Right? So it is just the spiritual practice of returning over and over and over again. Do not beat yourself up for recognizing that I feel stuck or I can't seem to totally embody what I know intellectually. I have had thousands of times where that's when my commitment to spiritual practice really shows up. And that's when I go back to spiritual practice. I use affirmations because I'm really stuck here. I keep getting stuck back at, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know how to make this happen. And it's like, right, I don't know. I don't know. I'm afraid because I don't know. I'm frustrated because I don't know. And then I remind myself, but Tracy, you don't have to know. There is a wisdom that is bigger than yours. It is always operating. There is a love that has created you that will never abandon you. It's impossible for you to be separate from it. And so right here and right now, I just have to remember that I may not know what to do, but God knows what to do. Spirit knows what to do. It is the changeless reality. And whatever happens, I'm going to do my part, and together, right, the human Tracy and the divinity in Tracy are going to work together and get through this. It's just practice. And when we have had a really good life or good experience, or life's been going well for the longer time it's been going well, and then we get hit with something that's challenging, difficult, unexpected, and undesired, it's easy to go, one, what did I do? Did I cause this? Whole nother conversation. And it's easy to go, I don't think I can, I don't know what to do. So we go back to spiritual practice again and again and again. And we do what Ernest Holmes writes about in the very next chapter, the very next paragraph. So I'm going to go into the beginning of that, and then I'll turn to Ryan and see if we have something else. The very next section says, look only at what you want. Never look at that which you do not wish to experience. No matter what the false condition may be, it must be refuted. The proper kind of a denial is based upon the recognition that in reality, there is no limitation, for mind can as easily make a planet as an acorn. The infinite knows no difference between $1 million and a penny. It only knows that it is. That paragraph right there, OMG, that paragraph right there, look only at what you want. Turn away from, the section before, turn entirely from the condition. See it, acknowledge it, turn away from it, and start looking at what you want, what you know, what you believe. That is, I was going to say, that is the shortcut to a miracle, which, of course, some of you know there's a book by that title that was written by two ministers trained in science of mind. And we are going to, at CSLDallas, be offering that course beginning in late September, Shortcut to a Miracle. And almost every week during that course, I'm going to be saying, don't look at what you don't want, look at what you want. Don't look at what you don't want, look at what you want. And this paragraph on page 186 that Ernest Holmes writes is the core of so much of what we teach. So Ryan, do we have any comments or additional questions as we begin to wind down? We have about 5 or 6 more minutes.
Yeah, I'm just taking a look here on the Facebook Live as well as here in the Zoom. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to raise your hand over here in the Zoom.
Great. So yeah, we'll have time to maybe get in one question or comment, but this is so critical in this chapter on causes and conditions. Ernest Holmes keeps taking us back to remember that our thoughts actually are causes, and we need to manage our thoughts and continually train ourselves to connect our thoughts with the perfect universe in order to shift conditions that are happening in the physical universe, right? The spiritual universe is the perfect universe, and the human or physical universe is the conditions that we experience. They are real, they are factual, but they are not perfection, and they are not the only thing that we have. Howard Thurman has a quote that I love, and it's paraphrasing it. It basically says, it's not that separation is not authentic. It's that separation is not absolute. So when we are experiencing conditions that feel like we're separate from God or separate from the perfect universe, that's authentically happening. But it is not the absolute truth of God, of life, of love, of joy, of what is possible. And it is the absolute truth that we constantly connect ourselves and reconnect ourselves with if we want to live our best life. So that's really what I want to encourage you as we go into the week, to really be thinking about this idea that there is one perfect universe, and we are all a part of it, that it is our job individually to turn entirely from the condition, and that turning away from the condition requires us to then take the next step, which is look at, define, focus on only what we want. And I would also remind us that we want to practice this in our individual lives, because that is what gives us the ability to practice it collectively. So let's not ever forget that what we do in our individual life is contributing to the collective. And so if we actually want to change the world, and we want things in our world to manifest differently in our city, in our nation, in the global world, that it really is a requirement that we are contributing what we want to see in an individual way. It requires action, not just mental thought. So our thoughts lay the foundation for our beliefs. Our beliefs drive our behavior. The behavior we repeat over and over again becomes our habits, and our habits then create our experience. So when something is happening that's challenging for you in your life, if you have the belief that everything is good or leading to good, that there is a perfect universe, and that's driving your behavior, you're going to also have habits that are prayer, spiritual practice, etc. You're going to have a good outcome. But if you get stuck in the belief that, oh my goodness, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Oh my, I don't know how to deal with this. Oh, this is really hard. I don't know if I'll get out of this at all. And that's the belief, then that's the belief that's going to drive the behavior. The behavior is going to be fear, conflict, avoidance, silence, all kinds of things that you don't want. It's going to be repeated over and over, and your outcome is going to reflect that. So all Ernest Holmes is doing is reminding us that we must turn away from the condition, remember the truth, and look at what you want, not what you don't want. I want to thank you for being with us today. This weekly opportunity to dive more deeply into the science of mind, what Ernest Holmes wrote, how we interpret that in our lives, is really a joyful time, a reflective time, and a time of preparation. And so thank you for being with us today. And my name is Tracy Brown, and I would like to end us the way that we began, in prayer. So in this moment, I speak this word of gratitude. Gratitude for life itself, of course, and gratitude for this shared life of everyone participating in this class today, by reading along, by thinking about the words spoken, by sharing a comment, an observation, a reflection, or a question, by simply being present to this body of work titled Science of Mind. What deep gratitude I have for each moment spent in going deeper, in understanding the spiritual reality of life for each individual and for all humanity collectively. And so from that place of gratitude, knowing that each person goes into the rest of their day with this spiritually grounded foundation, I claim and declare that this time together is good and leads to good. And we affirm that together by saying amen, and so it is. Have a great week, everybody.